They called it the kiss of life, but it wasn't a kiss of romance. High above the sweltering streets of Jacksonville, a deadly dance with electricity was about to unfold, culminating in a moment of raw heroism captured in one iconic photograph. It was a sweltering July day in Jacksonville, Florida, the kind where the humidity clung to you like a second skin, the air thick and heavy enough to taste. The sun beat down mercilessly on the small crew of linemen working to restore power to a neighborhood affected by a recent storm. It was July 1967, and the work was routine, if you could call anything routine when dealing with high-voltage electricity. The crew was tasked with replacing a faulty insulator on a high-voltage line, a job they'd done countless times before. There was a slight, almost imperceptible, buzz coming from the transformer, a sound only seasoned linemen like Thompson and Randall Champion would notice, a subtle hint of the potential danger that lurked within the humming wires. Joe and Mike were working on the ground, prepping equipment, their banter a familiar soundtrack to the work, a comfortable rhythm of jokes and shared complaints about the heat. They worked with a synchronized efficiency, a silent understanding born from years of shared risks and close calls, a brotherhood forged in the crucible of danger. Thompson was a veteran, a man of few words but unwavering action. He'd seen it all in his 15 years on the lines, and his calm demeanor was a reassuring presence to the younger guys. He was a rock, steady and dependable, the kind of man you wanted by your side in a crisis. He had a picture of his 2 daughters tucked into his helmet, a constant reminder of what he was working to protect, a tangible symbol of his dedication and love. He wiped the sweat from his brow, the salt stinging his eyes, thinking about the cold beer waiting for him at home and the promise he'd made to take his girls fishing that weekend. He glanced up at the clear blue sky, a momentary respite from the task at hand, before refocusing on the pole, on the wires, on the job that needed to be done. Randall Champion, known as Champ to everyone, was the life of the crew, always ready with a joke or a story. He was a few years younger than Thompson, but just as skilled, his hands moving with the same confident precision, his body attuned to the rhythms of the work. Champ was humming a tune, a catchy melody that drifted on the heavy air, his mind on the tricky splice he was about to make, a task that required absolute focus, a delicate dance between man and electricity. He was thinking about the barbecue he was planning for the weekend, imagining the laughter and the good food, a small reward for another week of hard work. He reached out with his wrench, the metal glinting in the harsh sunlight, reflecting the intense heat of the day. He shifted his weight, his boot just inches from the live wire, a seemingly insignificant movement that would soon have catastrophic consequences. A sudden, sharp crackle ripped through the air, followed by a blinding flash of blue-white light, an instantaneous eruption of raw power. The smell of burning metal and ozone filled the air, an acrid stench that would forever be associated with this moment. The hum of the electricity, a constant background noise, was momentarily drowned out by the sickening sound of the arc, a sound that seemed to tear through the fabric of reality. Champ's body convulsed, every muscle seizing up, his limbs jerking uncontrollably. His grip on the wrench tightened involuntarily as thousands of volts surged through him, a torrent of energy that overwhelmed his nervous system. He let out a strangled cry, a sound cut short as his heart stuttered and stopped, his vocal cords paralyzed by the electrical onslaught. The world around him dissolved into a blinding white haze, then plunged into darkness. Joe and Mike froze, their faces paling as they watched the scene unfold above them, their earlier banter replaced by a stunned silence. "Champ!" Joe yelled, his voice hoarse with terror, the single word a desperate plea against the unfolding tragedy. Their eyes were fixed on Champ's figure, suspended in the air, a horrifying spectacle of a man caught between life and death. Champ hung limp in his harness, his head lolling to the side, his face ashen, devoid of all color. He wasn't breathing. His body was still, unnaturally so, the vibrant energy that had animated him just moments before now extinguished. He was clinically dead, his life hanging by the thinnest of threads, a thread that was rapidly unraveling. The silence that followed the initial shock was deafening, broken only by the faint hum of the electricity, a constant reminder of the invisible force that had claimed its victim. Without a word, Thompson dropped his tools and started climbing. Years of training kicked in, overriding any fear or doubt. His mind focused solely on the task at hand. There was no time for hesitation, no room for error. His movements were automatic, driven by instinct and a deep-seated sense of responsibility for his fellow linemen. He scaled the pole with a speed born of desperation, his muscles burning, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his heart pounding in his chest like a drum. He ignored the pain, the fatigue, the fear that gnawed at the edges of his awareness. All that mattered was reaching Champ, reaching him before it was too late. He reached Champ, his own body trembling with exertion and adrenaline. He quickly assessed the situation, his mind racing to remember the precise steps of rescue protocol, the life-saving procedures he had practiced countless times, but never before in such dire circumstances. He had to work fast, knowing that every second was critical, that every moment of delay decreased Champ's chances of survival. "Please, God, let me do this," he muttered under his breath, a silent prayer, a desperate plea for guidance and strength. Think of his wife, his kids. "Just breathe, Champ, breathe." He tilted Champ's head back, creating an open airway, pinched his nose, and blew air into his lungs, his own breath mingling with Champ's, a desperate attempt to force life back into his still body. Then he began chest compressions, his hands pressing down with a steady, forceful rhythm, his weight driving each compression, his body a machine fueled by adrenaline and hope. He counted silently, his lips moving with each number, a mantra of survival. The only sounds were his own grunts of effort, the sickening thud of his hands against Champ's chest, the creak of the harness, and the faint cries of his colleagues urging him on from below, their voices a distant echo in the intensity of the moment. He kept going, refusing to give up, even as doubt gnawed at him, even as his muscles screamed in protest. Was it too late? Was he doing it right? Was his effort in vain? He pushed those thoughts aside, focusing on the rhythm, on the task, on the hope that he could somehow pull Champ back from the brink. Then he felt it, a faint flutter under his fingers, a subtle tremor in Champ's chest, a weak, almost imperceptible gasp, a desperate intake of air. Champ was alive, barely but alive. A tiny spark of life had been rekindled, a fragile flame flickering in the darkness. Relief washed over him, so intense it almost buckled his knees, a wave of emotion that threatened to overwhelm him. But he knew he couldn't stop. He had to keep going until the paramedics arrived, until Champ was safely in their care. He continued the CPR, his movements now infused with a renewed sense of hope, his determination strengthened by the fragile sign of life he had witnessed. The wail of sirens pierced the air, growing louder as the ambulance raced towards the scene, a welcome sound that signaled the arrival of help. Paramedics swarmed the pole, taking over from Thompson, their movements precise and efficient, their equipment a stark contrast to the primitive but effective methods Thompson had employed. They quickly assessed Champ's condition, attaching electrodes to his chest, administering medication, their actions a flurry of controlled urgency. Thompson climbed down slowly, his legs shaking, his body drained, his mind still reeling from the intensity of the experience. He felt a hand on his shoulder, Joe's, offering silent support, a gesture of solidarity and gratitude. He looked up at the pole, at the paramedics working on Champ, and offered a silent prayer of thanks. Champ spent weeks in a hospital, undergoing extensive treatment, but he made a full recovery. The doctors called it a miracle, a testament to the resilience of the human body, but everyone who knew Thompson knew it was more than that. It was a testament to Thompson's quick thinking, his unwavering courage, and his refusal to give up. Rocco Morabito, a photographer for the Jacksonville Journal, had been driving by when he saw the commotion, the unusual sight of a lineman performing CPR high above the ground. He instinctively grabbed his camera, a tool he had used to document countless events, both ordinary and extraordinary. He raised his camera, framed the shot, and pressed the shutter, capturing the image that would soon become iconic, a moment frozen in time. The photograph, dubbed "The Kiss of Life," was published on the front page of newspapers across the country, and then around the world. It became a symbol of hope, resilience, and the extraordinary bond between two men, a visual representation of the power of human connection and the will to survive. It was a story of heroism, of selflessness, of the extraordinary lengths one man would go to save another. Morabito was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for spot news photography in 1968 for his iconic photo, a recognition of the image's power and its lasting impact. Thompson and Champion remained close friends for the rest of their lives. Their bond forged in a moment of unimaginable crisis, a bond that transcended the ordinary. They both continued to work as linemen, but the experience changed them, deepening their appreciation for life and the importance of looking out for one another. They understood, in a way that few others could, the fragility of life and the preciousness of every breath. The Kiss of Life is more than just a photograph. It's a testament to the power of human connection, the unwavering spirit of heroism, and the enduring miracle of a second chance. It's a reminder that even in the face of death, hope can prevail, and that the actions of one person can make all the difference.